My wife filed for divorce, and in the middle of the hearing, a homeless man walked in and asked the judge, "Your Honor, may I show you something he doesn't know?" My wife filed for divorce, and in the middle of the hearing, a homeless man walked in and asked the judge, "Your Honor, may I show you something he doesn't know?" The courtroom doors opened at 10:47 a.m., and a man who looked like he'd been sleeping under a bridge walked straight down the center aisle. I was sitting at the defendant's table. Though in a divorce hearing, there's technically no defendant, watching my wife, Rachel, describe me as a monster. She'd been crying for 6 minutes straight. Perfect timing, just enough to seem genuine without overdoing it. The BAWAF moved toward the homeless man immediately. "Sir, you need to, Your Honor," the man interrupted, voice rough but clear. "May I show you something he doesn't know?" Judge Patricia Moreno looked up from her notes, one eyebrow raised. She'd been presiding over family court in Cook County for 17 years. I'd read that in her bio online while preparing for this hearing. She had sharp eyes and zero tolerance for theatrics. "Excuse me," she said. Rachel's face went white. Not pale, not flushed. White, like every drop of blood had drained straight out. "My name is Daniel Hayes. I'm 36 years old. I work as a senior project manager for a construction firm. And until 3 months ago, I'd been married to Rachel Chambers for 8 years. She filed for divorce on a Tuesday. No conversation, no warning. Just an envelope delivered to my office by a process server who apologized for interrupting my meeting. Inside divorce papers and a sticky note in Rachel's handwriting that said, "Don't make this difficult." That was Rachel, always polite when she wanted to be cruel. The first few weeks after she filed, I tried to talk to her, tried to understand what happened. We had problems. Sure, what marriage doesn't, but nothing that seemed divorce-worthy. We'd argued about money sometimes, about her spending habits, about her mother visiting too often, normal stuff. But every time I called, she sent it to voicemail. Every text went unanswered. Her lawyer, Janet Silverman, a shark with a corner office and a reputation for bleeding men dry, sent me a cease and desist letter after my 5th attempt. "Your client is harassing mine. All communication must go through counsel." So, I got my own lawyer. Thomas Mitchell, 52, 30 years of family law experience, calm demeanor that reminded me of my dad. He'd looked at Rachel's filing and frowned. "She's claiming abuse," he said quietly. "Emotional, financial, and verbal." My stomach dropped. "That's not true. I believe you, but we're going to need to prove it." The hearing had started at 9:30 a.m. Rachel's lawyer went first, building a narrative of a controlling husband who monitored every dollar, criticized every decision, isolated her from friends and family. Rachel testified in a soft voice, dabbing her eyes with a tissue at precise intervals. She wore a navy dress, conservative, vulnerable, and kept her hands folded in her lap when she wasn't gesturing to emphasize a point. "He controlled everything," she said, voice breaking. "I couldn't even buy groceries without him questioning every receipt. He'd go through my purse looking for evidence I'd spent money without permission." That was a lie. We had separate bank accounts. She had her own credit cards. I'd never once looked through her purse. But watching her cry made my bank statements feel hollow, irrelevant. "I was afraid all the time," she continued. "Afraid of saying the wrong thing. Afraid he'd explode if I disagreed with him about anything." I'd never exploded. I'd raised my voice twice in 8 years. Once when she'd lied about returning an expensive handbag she couldn't afford. And once when I'd found out her mother had been staying in our guest room for 3 weeks without telling me. But Janet Silverman knew how to frame it. "When you say explode, can you describe what that looked like?" "He'd get red in the face," Rachel said. "His hands would shake. He'd stand over me while I was sitting, using his height to intimidate me. Once he punched the wall right next to my head. The wall punch had happened, but it wasn't next to her head. It was in the garage after I'd found out she'd maxed out a credit card I didn't know she had, and I'd immediately apologized and paid to fix the drywall." Judge Moreno was taking notes. Her expression stayed neutral, but I saw her glance at me when Rachel mentioned the wall. Thomas leaned close. "We'll present our evidence next. Stay calm." But Rachel's performance was flawless. She'd practiced this, rehearsed every pause, every tear, every trembling hand gesture. "The worst part," Rachel said, voice dropping to almost a whisper, "was feeling like I was disappearing, like I didn't exist, except as an extension of him, his convenient wife, his showcase piece at company events. That one actually hurt because there was a grain of truth in it. I'd been focused on work, on climbing the ladder, on providing. I'd taken her to every company event and introduced her proudly. But had I actually asked what she wanted, what she needed? Maybe not enough. He made me feel worthless," Rachel finished. "Like I was lucky he'd married me. Like I should be grateful he put up with me. I'd never said anything like that. Never even thought it." But the way she looked at Judge Moreno, direct eye contact, chin trembling just slightly, made it seem true. Janet Silverman sat down with a satisfied expression. "No further questions, Your Honor." Judge Moreno looked at Thomas. Mr. Mitchell, Thomas stood. He had a folder thick with documentation, bank statements, text message transcripts, testimony from friends. Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence that directly contradicts. That's when the courtroom doors opened. The homeless man stepped inside. He was maybe 60, wearing clothes that looked like they'd been slept in for weeks, dirty jeans, a jacket with stains I didn't want to identify, gray beard that hadn't been trimmed in months, but his eyes were clear, sharp, focused. The bailiff, Officer Marcus Rodriguez, according to his name tag, built like he could bench press a car, intercepted him immediately. "Sir, this is a closed hearing. You can't be here, Your Honor," the man said, not looking at Rodriguez, keeping his eyes on the judge. "May I show you something he doesn't know? I'd never seen him before in my life." Rachel's face went white. Judge Moreno set down her pen. "Who are you?" "My name is Walter Freeman," the man said. "I volunteer at the 5th Street shelter. Serve meals sometimes. Help where I can." He pulled a phone from his pocket. Cracked screen held together with packing tape. Battery probably from 2015. 3 weeks ago, I recorded something. Something you need to see. Janet Silverman shot to her feet. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We have no idea who this man is or sit-down counselor," Judge Moreno said sharply. Her eyes hadn't left Walter. "Mr. Freeman, what exactly did you record?" Walter took 3 steps forward. Officer Rodriguez tensed but didn't stop him. "I record things sometimes," Walter said. "When I see something that doesn't feel right. Learn that from being on the streets. Trust your gut. 3 weeks ago, this woman came to the shelter." He pointed at Rachel. My wife's mouth opened slightly. No sound came out. "She wasn't there to help," Walter continued. "She was there to meet someone. I watched them from the corner. Something about the way she looked around, nervous, secretive, made me pull out my phone." Judge Moreno gestured to Officer Rodriguez. "Show me." Walter handed over his phone. Rodriguez connected it to the courtroom's display system using an adapter from the judge's tech setup. The screen flickered, then filled with shaky footage. Nighttime parking lot. Sodium lights casting everything orange. A car sat at the far end. Rachel's silver Lexus, the one I'd helped her pick out 2 years ago. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. on March 15th, a date I remembered clearly. Rachel had told me she was visiting her sister in Evanston. Said she'd be home late. I'd fallen asleep on the couch waiting. A man appeared on screen, walking across the parking lot. Not homeless, well-dressed, expensive coat, confident stride. He opened the passenger door of Rachel's car and climbed inside. They kissed immediately. Hungry, urgent. My chest tightened. Then Rachel's voice came through the courtroom speakers. Clear, cold, nothing like the soft, broken tone she'd used on the witness stand. "He still doesn't suspect anything. God, men are so stupid when they trust you." The man laughed. "And the timeline I'll file next month, April, at the latest. I've been documenting everything, keeping a journal of his abuse. My therapist is on board. She'll testify that I've been describing controlling behavior for months. Smart. I know." Rachel's voice was smug, satisfied. "I'll cry on the stand. Say I was terrified. Judges always believe the woman, especially if she's pretty. I'll get the house, half his retirement, probably alimony. He's too nice to fight back hard." The man's hand moved to her thigh. "And the restraining order, easy. I'll say he threatened me, that I'm afraid for my safety. That'll freeze his assets and make him look dangerous. Public perception is everything in these cases." The courtroom was dead silent. Even the court reporter had stopped typing. I sat frozen, watching footage of my wife planning my destruction with the same casual tone she used to discuss dinner plans. "The best part," Rachel continued on screen. "His lawyer will advise him to settle. They always do. He'll be so afraid of losing in court that he'll give me everything just to make it stop. I'll walk away with at least $400,000. Probably more." The man kissed her neck. "You're vicious. I love it. I'm practical," she corrected. "And I'm tired of being married to a boring project manager who thinks a nice dinner is Olive Garden. I want more. I deserve more. When can we go public?" "After the divorce is final. I'll tell everyone he was abusive and controlling, that I barely escaped with my life. I'll be the brave survivor. You'll be my supportive new partner who helped me heal. No one will ever know we've been together for 2 years. 2 years. We'd been married for 8. The video ended. The screen went black. Nobody moved. Judge Moreno's face had gone from neutral to stone. She looked at Rachel, who'd gone from white to gray, then to Janet Silverman, who looked like she wanted to crawl under her table. "Your Honor," Janet started. "Is this a public parking lot?" Judge Moreno asked Walter. "Yes, ma'am. 5th Street shelter. No gates, no privacy expectation. I checked with a lawyer before I came. It's legal." Judge Moreno turned to Rachel. "Miss Chambers, do you wish to revise your testimony?" Rachel's mouth opened, closed. Her eyes darted to the exit. She looked at me for the first time since the video started. Not with remorse, not with shame, with pure, undiluted rage, like I'd somehow orchestrated this, like I'd betrayed her. "I need a recess," Janet Silverman said quickly, standing. "My client needs time to denied," Judge Moreno said flatly. She closed her notebook with a sharp snap. "This hearing is over." She looked directly at Rachel. "I'm dismissing your petition with prejudice. Your claims of abuse are clearly fraudulent. Your documented plan to commit perjury and fraud against Mr. Hayes has been submitted as evidence. If Mr. Hayes wishes to file countercharges, and I strongly suggest he does, this court will fully support those proceedings." Janet Silverman's face had gone pale. "Your Honor, your client just committed multiple felonies in my courtroom, counselor. I suggest you advise her to get a criminal defense attorney." Judge Moreno looked at Thomas. "Mr. Mitchell, I'll expect your counterclaim within the week. Perjury, fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and anything else you can document." Thomas stood. "Yes, Your Honor." Rachel exploded. She shot to her feet, chair scraping back hard. "You set this up," she screamed at me. "You paid him. You." Officer Rodriguez moved fast. "Ma'am, sit down." Rachel's voice had lost all its soft vulnerability. This was the real Rachel. The one I'd glimpsed in 8 years, always quickly hidden. "He's manipulating all of you. That video is fake. It's Ms. Chambers." Judge Moreno's voice cut through like a blade. "Sit down." Rachel sat, but her hands were shaking. Not with fear, with fury. Judge Moreno stood. "We're adjourned. Mr. Mitchell, my clerk will contact you with next steps. Miss Silverman, I suggest you withdraw from this case immediately." She left through her chamber's door. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The court reporter packed up. Janet Silverman grabbed her briefcase and left without looking at Rachel. Just abandoned her client like a sinking ship. Rachel turned on me. Her face was twisted with hate. "You're going to pay for this," she hissed. "You think this is over?" "You think, Ms. Chambers?" Thomas said calmly. "I strongly advise you to stop talking. Anything you say right now can and will be used against you in criminal proceedings." She looked at him, then at me, then at Walter, who was standing near the door, phone back in his pocket. She stood, walked past me, stopped, leaned close enough I could smell her perfume. Chanel No. 5. The expensive stuff she'd insisted she needed. "I almost had everything," she whispered. "And you're still too stupid to even understand why I did it." Then she left. Officer Rodriguez watched her go. "You want me to file a report about those threats?" Thomas nodded. "Please, everything documented." Walter approached slowly. He looked at me with tired eyes that had seen too much. "You didn't know about the affair?" he asked. "No," he nodded. "Men usually don't. Women like that, they're good at hiding." "Why did you record it?" I asked. "Because I've been on the streets for 6 years," Walter said. "And in that time, I've learned to recognize people who hurt others." The way she looked around that parking lot, like she owned the world and the rest of us were just background noise. I've seen that look before on people who beat their partners, who steal from shelters, who see other humans as tools. He pulled his jacket tighter. "I recorded it because I thought she might be planning to hurt someone. Turns out I was right." "Thank you," I said. My voice cracked. "I don't know how to. You don't need to thank me." Walter smiled, missing 2 teeth, but genuine. "Just maybe remember that sometimes the people who look like they have nothing are paying more attention than the ones who have everything." He walked toward the door. "Wait," I called. Can I help you somehow? Money? A place to stay? Something?" Walter paused, turned back. "I don't need money," he said. "But the shelter does. Fifth Street Shelter. They helped me when I had nothing. Maybe help them instead." He left before I could respond. Thomas packed his briefcase slowly. "That was the most insane thing I've seen in 30 years of family law." "Is it over?" I asked. "The divorce?" "Yes. Her petition's dismissed with prejudice, which means she can't refile. But criminally," he looked at me seriously. "Daniel, she committed perjury, conspiracy to commit fraud, possibly extortion, depending on how we frame it. If you want to press charges, I want to press charges." He nodded. "I'll contact the state's attorney's office, probably talk to ADA Catherine Chen. She handles fraud cases, 16 years in the prosecutor's office. This is exactly her specialty." "What happens to Rachel if convicted?" "Could be anything from probation to 3 years in prison, plus fines, plus a permanent criminal record." He paused. "And her lawyer is going to report her to the Illinois State Bar's disciplinary board for attempting to defraud the court. That video makes Janet Silverman look complicit, even though she probably didn't know. She'll want to distance herself fast." I sat back down in the empty courtroom. My hands were shaking now. Post-adrenaline crash. "She was going to take everything," I said quietly. "The house. My retirement. She was going to paint me as an abuser, and I had no idea." "Men rarely do," Thomas said, echoing Walter's words. "Especially good men. They assume everyone operates from the same moral framework they do. I feel stupid. Don't. You feel betrayed. There's a difference. We sat in silence for a minute. The guy in the video, I said. Her affair partner. Can we find out who he is? Already on it. I've got a private investigator, Marcus Webb, former Chicago PD detective, 25 years experience. He'll identify the man, document the affair timeline, and provide testimony if needed. For what? Civil court? You can sue both of them for alienation of affection. It's harder to prove in Illinois, but with that video, we've got a case. I thought about Rachel's smug voice on that video. I deserve more. Do it, I said. Everything, criminal charges, civil suit, all of it. Thomas smiled. Now you're thinking clearly. The next week moved fast. Ada Catherine Chen called me personally. Professional voice, direct questions, no nonsense. Mr. Hayes, I've reviewed the evidence. I'm filing criminal charges against Rachel Chambers for perjury, fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. We'll need your testimony and cooperation. You have it. Good. We'll schedule a deposition. In the meantime, do not contact her directly. No texts, no calls, nothing. Understood. Understood. Marcus Webb, the PI, identified Rachel's affair partner within 48 hours. His name was Connor Matthews, 39. Divorced, worked as a pharmaceutical sales rep. Good salary, flashy lifestyle. He and Rachel had been meeting at hotels throughout Chicago for almost 2 years. Marcus had credit card receipts, hotel security footage, text messages between them going back to June 2022. She was careful, Marcus told me over coffee at a diner in Lincoln Park, but not careful enough. They used the same 3 hotels, always paid in cash, but hotel security cameras don't lie. I've got footage of them checking in together at the Conrad on 5 separate occasions. Is that enough for a civil suit? More than enough. Alienation of affection requires proof of love and affection destroyed by a third party. We've got timeline documentation showing exactly when the affair started and how your marriage deteriorated from that point. We've got her own voice on recording saying she's been with him for 2 years. It's a slam dunk. What's he going to lose? Marcus smiled. Money mostly. Alienation suits can award significant damages, but more importantly, his reputation. His employer won't like this getting public. Neither will his ex-wife, who will probably come after him for custody modification. Bad publicity has a way of destroying people. I thought about that about Connor Matthews kissing my wife in a parking lot while planning to destroy my life. File the suit, I said. The criminal case moved to arraignment 3 weeks later. I sat in the gallery while Rachel stood before Judge Leonard Wright, 62, presided over criminal court for 19 years. Reputation for being fair but harsh. She wore an orange jumpsuit. Her hair was pulled back without any styling, no makeup. She looked small. Ms. Chambers. Judge Wright read from the charges. You're being charged with 3 counts of perjury, 2 counts of fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit fraud. How do you plead? Rachel's public defender, overworked, exhausted looking, whispered something to her. Not guilty, Rachel said, but her voice cracked. Bail is set at $50,000. Trial date set for July 22nd. Next. The bailiff led her away. She looked at me once as she passed. No rage this time, just emptiness. Her mother called me that night, screaming, crying. How could I do this to her daughter? How could I ruin her life over a misunderstanding? I hung up without responding. The civil suit against Connor Matthews hit him 2 days later. Served at his office in front of his colleagues. According to Marcus Webb, who'd staked out the building, Connor Unk's face had gone purple when he saw the complaint. He called me from a blocked number that evening. You vindictive piece of shit, he spat when I answered. You're going to pay for this. I put him on speaker so Thomas Mitchell, who was at my apartment reviewing documents, could hear. Mr. Matthews, Thomas said calmly. This is Daniel's attorney. You're on speaker. I'm recording this call. Please continue making threats so we can add harassment to the civil complaint. The line went dead. Thomas smiled. These guys always think they're smarter than everyone else. The trial happened in late July. Heatwave. Chicago sweltering. The criminal courthouse felt like an oven. Catherine Chen prosecuted personally. She presented Walter Freeman's video first, played it for the jury in full, showed the bank records proving Rachel had separate accounts and freedom to spend, brought in 3 of my co-workers who testified I'd never displayed controlling or abusive behavior. Rachel's public defender did his best, argued the video was taken out of context, that Rachel had been venting in what she believed was a private moment, that she'd never actually intended to lie under oath. But then Catherine put Rachel's therapist on the stand. Dr. Michelle Torres, licensed clinical psychologist, 12 years in practice. Did Miss Chambers discuss her marriage with you? Catherine asked. Yes. She came to me 6 months before filing for divorce. Said she needed documentation of abuse for legal proceedings. Documentation of abuse, not treatment for abuse. Correct. She specifically asked me to write clinical notes describing patterns of control and emotional manipulation. When I told her I could only document what I observed or what she described truthfully, she became angry, said I wasn't being helpful. Did you write the notes? No. I terminated our professional relationship. What she was asking me to do was unethical and illegal. The jury's expression shifted. This wasn't a woman escaping abuse. This was someone shopping for a willing accomplice. The verdict came back in 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Rachel sobbed when they read it. Her mother, sitting in the front row, wailed like someone had died. Judge Wright sentenced her 2 weeks later. M. Chambers, he said, looking down from the bench with cold eyes. You attempted to weaponize our legal system against an innocent man. You planned to commit perjury, destroy his reputation, and steal his assets through fraud. The only reason you failed is because a homeless man with a cheap cell phone had more integrity than you ever demonstrated. He paused. I'm sentencing you to 2 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections, followed by 3 years probation. You'll also pay restitution to Mr. Hayes for legal fees and court costs. Additionally, I'm recommending the Illinois Bar report this case to any jurisdiction where you might seek legal remedy in the future. Your actions have consequences. Maybe you'll learn that. The bailiff led her away. She didn't look at me this time. The civil suit against Connor Matthews settled out of court. His lawyer, expensive, nervous, offered $175,000 to make it go away quietly. Thomas advised me to take it. We could win more at trial, but this is guaranteed money. Plus, it saves you the stress. I took it. Connor lost his job 2 weeks later. His pharmaceutical company saw the news coverage and decided he was a liability to company reputation. His ex-wife filed for custody modification, claiming moral fitness concerns. He was paying for his choices too. 6 months after Walter Freeman walked into that courtroom, I was sitting on my back porch. The house was mine now, cleared in the divorce dismissal, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise. My phone buzzed. A Facebook message from a profile with no photo. This is Walter Freeman. The shelter wanted me to thank you for the donation. $50,000 is the largest single gift we've ever received. You didn't have to do that. I smiled. I'd actually donated the entire $175,000 from the Connor Matthews settlement. Split it between the 5th Street Shelter and 3 other organizations that served homeless populations. I typed back, "You saved my life. This is the least I could do." His response came fast. "You're a good man, Daniel. Your wife said you were boring, but boring men don't destroy their lives for revenge. Boring men don't donate huge amounts to strangers. Maybe boring isn't so bad." I laughed, set down my phone. Rachel served 16 months before being released on good behavior. I heard through mutual friends she'd moved to Ohio, working retail, living with her mother. The criminal record made professional employment nearly impossible. Connor Matthews moved to Arizona, started over in a different industry. I never thought about him again, but I thought about Walter often. About how sometimes the people who look like they have nothing are the ones paying the most attention. About how a man the world dismissed as invisible saw more clearly than everyone else in that courtroom. A year after the trial, I got a letter handwritten return address from the 5th Street Shelter. Mr. Hayes, Mount Walter Freeman passed away last week, pneumonia. He died in a hospital bed with clean sheets and nurses who cared about him, which is more than most of us get. He wanted you to know something. He said that video wasn't the first time he'd seen your wife at the shelter. She'd come once before, 6 months earlier during a Christmas dinner service. She'd complained loudly about the smell, said homeless people didn't deserve nice things, and left early after taking photos for her social media. Walter said he recognized evil when he saw it. Not the dramatic kind, the casual kind, the kind that looks good on the surface, but hurts people without thought. He said saving you from her wasn't heroism. It was just one human being helping another. He said, "You'd understand that." We think he was right. The staff at 5th Street Shelter. I read that letter 3 times. Then I framed it and hung it in my home office right next to my desk because Walter Freeman taught me something more valuable than any MBA or career success ever could. That truth doesn't need you to defend it. It just needs a witness nobody expected.